So you're welcome back to this episode of this video, and in this episode we are going to learn about JavaScript functions. So a JavaScript function is a block of code designed to perform a particular task. So if you use a function to perform more than one task, then you have not used the function properly. So a function must perform a particular task. Now with function, you can reuse your code. So there are two levels of professional programming. That is, when you want to do advanced programming, you have the functional programming and you have the object-oriented programming. So using the functional programming, it means you use more of function to make your code reusable and have a better flow. So it is a very nice concept. Then the object-oriented programming uses more of classes to build complex applications like games. So in those classes, you learn about polymorphism, inheritance, and other stuff. So using function helps you to reuse your code. So up till now, the codes that we write, we can nickname them as busybody, because immediately you write them, whether you want them to run or not, immediately you save, you just see them on your console if you console or log them. But that is not how a function behaves. A function is not like busybody. It only runs when you want it to run. So even though you write it and save, it will not run. It just remain there. Only when you call it to run, only when you invoke it, that the function will run. So this is one of the beauty about function. You can reuse your code and you can tell your code when it will run and when it will not run. So function parameters are listed inside the parentheses in the function definition. So we have been using function since like the math.power, like the console.log. So like this object.assign that we just used, they are all functions or method. Now the difference between a function and a method, they are just the same thing, but on the surface they are the same thing. But technically a method is a function that is inside a class or an object. So function arguments are the values received by the function when it is invoked. So on the surface, a function parameter and the arguments, they are the same, but if you go in depth, you will notice that the function parameters are the ones that you put in the parentheses when you are declaring the function. When you are writing the function, you're writing the structure of the function. Then the argument is the one that you put in the parentheses when you're invoking the function, when you want the function to run. So that is just the slight difference. Now inside the function, the arguments or the parameters behave as local variables. I know what a local variable is. It exists within a block. You declare it inside a block. So outside that block, it does not exist. So let's now learn how to declare a function, and I'm going to show you two acceptable ways of declaring a function using the normal function method and the function keyword. So in this lecture, we are going to learn the following. So you're going to learn, so you're learning about function. So if I save this, the console will clear. So we are going to learn about the declaring a function using the function keyword. So we are going to learn about the new exist release, which is the arrow function. Then you're going to learn how to make our function dynamic, so that it will not be static. Then the next thing that we are going to learn is this. We're going to learn how to return values from function. And this is very important. Let's say you write a function that has two numbers and you want to use the result of that addition to do something else as part of a mathematical expression. So this is when you need to return a function, a value for a function. So let's learn the first one, how to declare a function using the function keyword. So this is the structure. So you just, let me type the shift plus A. So the structure of declaring a function using the function keyword, you use the function keyword, use the function name as the next parameter. So this is like the variable name, but in this case is a function name. Then you have the parentheses. Then you can have your parameters. So you can have parameter 1 dot like that. Then you're gonna have your block statements. So these are the statements that will run, or these are the logic. Remember, a function is used to do a particular task. So to achieve a task might involve more than one line of code. So those lines of code, they are called block statements. So let's declare a simple function. Let's say a function to greet a user. So we use the function keyword, then we use the parentheses. Now, not all functions accept a parameter. So I just put a console.log. Good morning, Mr. Chile. So this is the function. Now, just like I explained, a function is not busybody. So even as I've declared it like this, you see there's nothing on the output. So the next thing that I want to learn is how to invoke or call a function. So to call a function, the syntax is this, or the structure is this. So let me put an exclamation mark so this color will be different. So, and that is because I'm using beta comment. So if you install beta comment, you have that feature. So to call a function, invoke a function, you need the function name, then with parentheses. Then if they are parameters like A or B, you pass them, but if they are none, you leave it like that. So let's apply this. So I'll now put greet, which is the function name. I put my parentheses. Now, because there is no parameter when I was declared a function, so I don't need to pass it here. So even if I pass anyone, it will not throw an error because I did not use it inside the function. So if I save this, I'll have good morning. I did not even spell my good correctly. So I'll have good morning, Mr. Chile. Now, we say that one of the advantage of using function is that it helps you to reuse your code. So let's say I want to greet this user 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you notice that I just have 5 lines of code, but actually the function took 3 lines of code. So if you time this 5 by 3, you notice that this should have been what, 15 lines of code. So if I save this, I have this. But this our function is not dynamic. But before we dive into that, let's learn how to declare a function using the arrow function method. So still the same function, but I'll declare it using another method. So if I come here and I put let greet 1 be equal to, I put my parentheses, then arrow, then put my bracket, then I'll just put this console.log, I'll drag it down so that I don't waste time. So if I put here good morning Mr. Chile or Mr. Let me just change it so that it will not look the same. So if I want to invoke this function again, so I have to do greet 1 and I will invoke it. So only then will it run. So if I save, notice I have good morning Mr. Amadi. So you see that using the function keyword and the arrow function, they do the same thing, but there is a slight difference. So this brings us to the next part of this lecture, which is hoisting. Now, what is hoisting? Now, hoisting is a unique behavior of JavaScript when it's executing your code. So immediately I save this, what JavaScript will do on the background when it's doing hoisting, especially with the function keyword and var variable, when you use var to declare variable, it will like shift those keyword, the function and the var to the top. So it will like rearrange them to the top, then start to execute, so that when it comes down and it sees like I'm invoking the function, if I use the function keyword, you will say yes, I saw this function at the top, so it will not throw an error. It's not about it. But when you're using the arrow function, it does not do that hoisting. So if you try to invoke a function before you declare it, it will throw an error, and I will demo that now. So if I declare another function, so let's say I'll say, let me just say dance, and I invoke it, and I come here and say function dance, let's say console.log. I am dancing. So if I save this, you notice there will not be an error. So you notice that I first of all invoked the function before I created it, but because of this hoisting, which is done by this function keyword, JavaScript, immediately I save, pushes this function declaration to the top as a global variable, so that when it comes down here, it already knows about this declaration and to not throw an error. But let's do the same thing using another function, but this time the arrow function. So let's say I call a function called driving, and I save, and I come down here and say let's driving be equal to an arrow function, then console.log I am driving. Now you notice if I save this, I'm going to have an error. Reference error, cannot access driving before initialization. So this is a JavaScript way of telling me that, see, you're trying to use a function when you have not initialized it or when you have not created it. So you notice that for this same process, it worked using the function keyword because of this hosting. JavaScript, as you save, will carry this function to the top to like rearrange it in its brain. So it will carry to the top so that when it comes to this guy, it already knows about this declaration. But when you use the function, when you use the arrow function, it does not do that hosting. So it expects you to declare the function before you use it. So to fix this now, I have to bring this driving down. So if I save this, you see that it's showing I am dancing, I am driving. So this is just one of the advantage of using the function keyword instead of the arrow function. But one advantage of the arrow function that it forces you to make your code readable. So because of this hoisting now, I can decide to carry all my function up or carry down. So when somebody is reading my code, the person will just be saying that, oh, I'm using a function called dancing and driving. But where did it declare the function? What is the function doing? The person does not know. So the person have to scroll up or down to see it. But when you're using the arrow function, the person would have encountered the function from the top before he will see using it at the down. So it makes your code more readable. So in this life, anything that has advantage has its own disadvantage. So that is for that. Now, how do we make a function dynamic? So let's say I create another function. So function. Now, another advantage of using the arrow function is very, very easier for you to type. Like, especially when you're working with anonymous functions, like a function that you create that does not have a name. So it's much more easier for you to type than the arrow function. So that is for that. So if I want to create a function called sum, and I say a console.log 2 plus 3. So notice that each time I call sum, it's going to show me what? 5, because 2 plus 3 is what? 5. Now, what if I want to be changing this value? So since it's two numbers I want to add, I'll pass two arguments here, or two parameters, a and what? B. Then instead of this, I'll now say a plus what? B. Now if I save this, I'll have an error. This is because I'm trying to add two numbers that is undefined because I did not pass them here. So if I pass in 2, 8, 2 plus 8 is what? Is 10. So you see, with this I have made my function dynamic. So this A and B is the parameter here, then this 2 and 8 is the argument, but on the surface they mean the same thing. So in order for you to make your function dynamic, you use parameters so that it doesn't have to be the default value that you type. And the next thing is how to return values from a function. So to return a value from a function is very, very simple. So I will say a function times 2 be equal to a function of a and b, or the parameters a and b. Then I'll now put return. So to return something from a function, use the return keyword. Then you will now have a times b. So if I do this, I have to consider log. I have to consider log times 2. So I'll put 9, 4. So 9 times 4 is what? That should be 18. That should be 36. So if you save it here, you have what? You have 36. So this is all about functions. So I believe with this, we now know what a function is, how to create our own custom function, either using the normal function or the arrow function. I have seen the slight advantage of using the function keyword, because it does hoisting, and we have seen the advantage of using the arrow function because it forces us to make our code readable and understandable, especially by other developers who might be reading our code, so that they don't have to be scrolling up and down to understand what our function is doing. So that is it for this video. In the next video, we are going to learn about conditionals.